everybody. Welcome to Belling History with the Good Time Girls. This is our hyper-local podcast about the quirky history of Bellingham, Washington, and the fourth corner of the United States. Even though we like to keep things close to home, these stories are no less entertaining to the masses and those who find themselves, unfortunately, outside of the PNW. And we are your hosts. I am Ren.
And I'm Colby. We are co-owners of Belling History Tours, also known as the Good Time Girls. If you want to know more about our tour business, visit our website at bellinghistory.com.
In today's episode, we're going to stay on the Santa Practic train now that you have some background from our previous episode. So, welcome to the second installment of Sanitarium Insanity in Bellingham, or turns out yogurt enemas and human bake ovens don't do jack shit to cure your depression. In this episode, we'll tell you what the hell we're talking about that title. You're going to be an expert about yogurt enemas by the time this is over. So we're going to jump over to Fairhaven in this episode and talk about the Yogurt Sanitarium, which opened in 1922 in the former Fairhaven Hotel. The hotel stood on the corner of 12th and Harris Avenue in Bellingham's South Side neighborhood known as Fairhaven. Fairhaven, for those that don't know, was once its own town, and today is kind of our quaint little old-timey shopping district on the south side, known for its characteristic 1890s brick buildings. So the Fairhaven Hotel was one of those 1890s boom-era buildings. It was called, in fact, the swankiest hotel on the whole coast at the time that it was built. But we're going to come back to that in just a minute.
Yes, so the Yogurt Sanitarium really got its start in a health supplement company. So we need to talk first a little bit about that. There was a company based in Bellingham called Yogurt Incorporated. And this is yogurt spelled Yoghurt with an H in there. So
fancy.
Yoghurt. This business was started around 1917 by a man named Henry M. White, who had formerly been Bellingham's city attorney. And he produced yogurt supplements and shipped them around the world. And yes, we're talking about yogurt. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's spelled Yoghurt, but it was yogurt,
yeah.
Which, led me to believe, I remember when we first started talking about this on the tours, I was so confused. I thought it was just somebody's weird name. I didn't know they were actually talking about yogurt.
They spelled yogurt all kinds of weird ways.
O-U makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So
we just spell it however.
It was always a mystery to me. And then it was even more of a mystery when I was like, oh, a yogurt health spa. Do right? Tell. So yeah, we all know what yogurt is now, but it was kind of exotic at the time for a lot of folks in the USA. Yogurt, in case you didn't know, is food produced by bacterial fermentation of milk. You can use any kind of animal milk. I've never tried cat yogurt. Goat yogurt.
I bet there's people out there who've made
yogurt.
Human yogurt.
Ew! Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Do sound off in the comments if you've made breast milk yogurt. Kind of really want to know.
I know. I'm sure it's been done.
Put some strawberry in there.
Hippies.
So the bacteria used to produce yogurt is known as yogurt cultures. There's a process, as we said, of fermentation. The bacteria eats the sugars in the milk, produces lactic acid. It acts on milk protein and gives it its texture and tart flavor. And it's a part of diets in many cultures worldwide. Yogurt was introduced to the United States in the first decade of the 20th century.
Yeah, so yogurt was kind of catapulted into fame after a lecture given by this guy, Elie Metchnikoff, in 1904 at the Pasteur Institute in Paris. And Metchnikoff suggested that longevity among Bulgarians could be attributed to the beneficial lactobacilli bacteria in yogurt. In 1910, there's a big article published about his theory of sour milk as panacea, and it attracted the attention of government experts and became front page news in media all over Europe and in the United States, and that's really when this yogurt craze takes off.
So this was further popularized by our old friend John Harvey Kellogg at the Battle Creek Sanitarium, where he employed its use both orally and in enema form. Soon, yogurt could be bought in pharmacies. It was available in tablet form. So in discussing these yogurt drinks at the Kellogg Sanitarium, they said, quote, "The yogurt tablets are dropped into a glass of milk and cream, and after a certain time, the glass holds rich buttermilk. Many of the patients are put almost entirely upon a yogurt diet. The Sanitarium makes yogurt cheese also. This is a white, saltless cheese that is really very good, even to those who are not fond of buttermilk. White,
Also, I just love
saltless cheese. Yum, yum, yum.
I don't know, but if it seems to me like even now, if you get, probiotic supplements, it's kind of tricky to keep those bacteria
alive.
And
doing
it
a
seems
thing.
like a tablet form wouldn't be very effective at that. But
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know.
So while Mechnikov wasn't quite right about some of the stuff, like the longevity thing in the Bulgarians, we know today that yogurt does provide many nutritional benefits. We're not naysaying that. But again, there is a weird mix of stuff in here that's like they were onto something with one thing, but then went over the top, and so many other things were just total shit. So back to Bellingham, we have our former city attorney, Henry M. White, and he decides to start capitalizing on the yogurt craze. So Colby, what do we know about Mr. White?
We don't know a lot. He was born in 1874 in West Virginia. His father was a prosperous farmer and landowner. Henry went to law school and came to Washington by 1900. He was appointed immigration commissioner and later state senator. He ran as a Democrat. I really couldn't find any clues about his motivation to be involved with yogurt and start this yogurt company. So I just didn't find anything that mentioned it. But presumably, I'm guessing he thought it was a good thing or had some interest in it in some way, or he wouldn't have invested in it. But he also could have just been like, hey, I'm going to capitalize on this weird health trend. I have no idea. But I know, so in 1917, he starts this business, and his business produces and ships these yogurt tablets and other weird processed, preserved fruits and vegetables, I think, mostly. Just so these mashups, and ships them around the world. And ads for the products are full of promises of long life and other kind of wild claims. So here's a quote. Yogurt contains long life bacillus, kills the old age bacillus, destroys intestinal self-poisoning, which is responsible for that tired, worn-out feeling, stomach, liver, kidney, blood, nerve diseases, prevents premature decay, senility, early death, special constipation and obesity treatment.
I love this kills old age bacillus.
I know, I'm like, what?
It's like Harry Potter and the basilisk.
Basilisk. I love that.
It's just
the
a
basilisk
in your gut, and the good one is killing the bad one. So another little blurb about this states that, quote, we are feeding the system, not drugging it. We can rebuild your nerves, your organs, your stomach and blood. We can round your contours or remove superfluous fat. We can make you young and restore disappearing vitality. If you have tried everything and failed, let us explain to you our mineral, nourishing salt treatment and neo diet for all ordinary cases, and our Phoenix cure for all old, inveterate, hitherto incurable diseases.
That's a mouthful.
That was a mouthful, and there's so much going on in there. It's like, we can give you fat, or we can take it away, whichever one you want.
Magic.
It's like magic.
Magic yogurt.
You just put the good basilisk in there. So, all talking about, drugless medicine, and then the Phoenix cure I like that because it's like, are we rising from the ashes?
Yeah, that was kind of, I tried to see if I could find more information about what exactly the Phoenix cure.
They're just
meant,
like, this sounds cool.
But
I'm pretty sure.
They never expand on it in any of the ads. But yeah, definitely, like, if you're suffering from some incurable thing, you can rise from the ashes like the Phoenix.
Yeah. I like it.
By yogurt supplements.
That's metal.
I know. It is.
So there are more ads, and they're super interesting in sort of laying out some of their beliefs. So in 1920, May 30th, we have, quote, pull your disease out by the roots. Greatest discovery in drugless healing. The human body is a chemical composition of 14 elements. Oh, here we go. Iron, calcium, phosphorus, sulfur, chloride, etc. If one of these elements is lacking, disease unavoidably sets in. Our civilized diet is deprived of most of these mineral elements, and solely for this reason, rich American people are half-starved from lack of nutritive or mineral salt. Consequently, they suffer with constipation, liver, kidney, bladder, and gall troubles. They are worn out and have that tired feeling. Diabetes, Bright's disease, consumption, the terrible mortality of infants, and all feminine ailments can be prevented and cured only by supplying the system with its constituent parts. Again, just everything under the sun we can cure. It is kind of interesting that 100 years ago, they were like, modern diets, they suck.
And also just like, it's funny to me that like, yeah, rich American people are half starved.
Yes.
You know,
that
like,
is, it's dramatic.
It's because of our modern diets. They're just lacking. You need to eat like the Bulgarians do.
Yes. To eat
clearly.
Like wholesome, from the land.
Peasant food.
More, and more minerals. I like the mineral composition. That's
and again,
crazy.
I've mentioned this one, I think, in our last episode, but there's a great podcast called Sawbones, and on there they always talk about old-timey crazy medicine, and they always talk about how when something says it's a cure-all, it can cure a million things from A to Z, that usually means it doesn't cure anything.
Yeah, and I think we're just going to discover that again and again and again and again. I love all feminine ailments can be prevented. Right. All of them.
All of them. I know, sign me up.
Yeah,
I've got some feminine ailments.
Well, maybe we ought to get in on that yogurt thing. I'm going to rush right down. Okay, so meanwhile, they probably see the relative success of the Sanitarium baths that we talked about earlier, and this leads to an impressive real estate deal. The Yogurt Incorporated company buys the former Fairhaven Hotel in 1922. If you don't know, if you haven't been on one of our tours, the Fairhaven Hotel was built in 1890 during the railroad boom. It was ranked as one of the swankiest places on Puget Sound, if not the Pacific Coast. And it was, quote, designed for the first-class traveler with reading rooms, parlors, billiard tables, and electric lights, steam heat, an elevator. There's a famous guest, Mr. Mark Twain. And some suggested that if Charles Larrabee, who is the owner of the Fairhaven Hotel, had made one bad financial decision, it was insisting on a dry hotel. The hotel never did very well and was mainly the Larrabee's family home for many years because Charles was a teetotaler. He did not believe in alcohol at all. And when you're in early Fairhaven, that is kind of the nail in the coffin. Everybody wants to drink. And so Charles Larrabee died in the hotel in his office in 1914. And then the rest of the family moved to their new home in the Edgemoor neighborhood, also known as Laremont Manor. We could have a whole podcast about that.
I mean, there was a great exhibit at the Wacom Museum just recently on the Fairhaven Hotel, which included some great stuff from the days as the Yogurt Sanitarium. So the former swankiest hotel just sat kind of in limbo until that 1922 purchase by the Yogurt Incorporated. The headline read, "The Fairhaven Hotel is sold, will become Sanitarium." One of the most interesting realty deals, the Larrabee estate sold to the Yogurt Sanitarium Incorporated, the Fairhaven Hotel. The property has 5 usable stories and a basement. It has 100 rooms, all of which the Sanitarium Company expects to fill with patients, using the products of the Yogurt Food Company. The plant will be removed to the basement of the Fairhaven Hotel. So he's going to have, make the yogurt supplements right there, feed everybody, come into the sanitarium.
You can stay.
Products.
Plenty of rooms.
And the article talked about how the lead doctor was from the U.S. Public Health Service and would be assisted by a corps of specialized physicians and nurses. They anticipated patients were going to come from all over the world. Basically, they were like, well, look at all these people everywhere in the world who buy our yogurt food products. They're all going to want to come here. Of course, the yogurt products would be part of the treatment. And there's a last little line in the article that's kind of a snub to the aforementioned sanitarium baths from our first episode. It says, the Sanitarium Company considers the hotel as ideal for its purposes and calls attention to the fact that there is now no sanitarium of consequence north of Seattle.
Dang, I
know.
Fighting words.
I know. The shade.
Yeah, and you will see how that turns out for them versus the sanitarium baths.
I know.
So the day before the grand opening of the Yogurt Sanitarium, a full-page ad was published in the Herald extolling the wonders of yogurt. So here's some of the choice quotes. So in 1922, February 8th, they say, quote, "For those who are not familiar with the wonders of yogurt, do you know you can produce poisons in your system as strong as those of venomous snakes? No remedy coming from the laboratory of a scientist or the study of a doctor has ever become so popular as yogurt." Intestinal self-poisoning is a condition in which the intestines have become infected with poison-forming and putrefactive germs. Disturbances in activities of the bowels come from a wrong diet, especially from overfeeding and eating too much meat. Now, should it not be possible to destroy the growth of hurtful microbes in the intestines? Quite certainly that is possible by the use of yogurt, sensible living, and a rational diet. Medical authorities have spent many years in search for an antidote for the intestinal poisons and got this clue in the Near East, especially in Bulgaria. They discovered that in this country are to be found the greatest number of centenarians. Strange to say, but in this uncultivated and unsanitary country, there are amongst 4 million inhabitants nearly 4,000 people over 100 years old. The cause of that longevity was found in the diet of this nation, who practically live on yogurt, a product of milk containing Bacillus bulgarius that has the power of destroying the poison-producing microbes in our intestines. There is in our possession a picture of a 127-year-old Bulgarian peasant woman with her son of 102 years. Her name is Kaba Wosilka from the village of Pavelki. Both are apparently in full vigor and able of doing their daily work like any young people. Both practically live on yogurt. Oh, the Bulgarian centenarians. What do you think?
It's a great band name.
Oh my gosh.
Something.
That is amazing. I love how they point out their like unsanitary living conditions.
They're like, they just live in this shithole country, but they live forever. Must be the yogurt.
It's gotta be the yogurt. Bacteriologists have succeeded in cultivating this friendly and beneficial Bacillus bulgarius here, and it can be had in the form of ferment for making yogurt milk at home or in the form of tablets ready for immediate use.
So I'm looking at another full-page ad from 1922, and in this one, they're comparing the sanitarium to what you could get at the hospital. And so they're saying that in the yogurt sanitarium, you're going to get naturopathic, just says naturopathic, mineral baths, room, mechanotherapy, high frequency, just says high frequency. Just don't know what that means.
Okay, cool.
Osteopathic treatments, like there's a comma in between. It's not high frequency osteopathic treatments, what that would even be. Urinalysis, laboratory test, blood test, nursing, massage, chiropractic treatments, complete diagnosis, hydrotherapy, board, I guess like room and board, electrotherapy, and medical. Which is just like a weird word salad, all of that. I'm just like, what? And then they're like, and at the hospital you get room, board, and nursing. Which I'm like, no, come on. I'm pretty sure the hospital also does urinalysis and lab tests. They just don't do the massage and the yogurt enemas and all that other kind of more woo stuff.
Right. It's fun, but it's also like there was a lot of like believability to that, and not a lot the hospitals could do, maybe even. So there's like there could be a competition between these two things.
And one thing I don't know is the hospitals were run by charity, by nuns, both Catholic and a Protestant version, but I'm assuming, you know, most of your costs were absorbed in some way. I don't know what the health system was like exactly, but you'd be paying a pretty penny to stay at the yogurt sanitarium.
For sure.
So they gotta make it seem like you're gonna get some special stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Compete with those nuns. Lord knows. I like how it says that for some time a medical physician was director of our sanitarium, but a sanapractic physician is now in charge. Like, that's a better thing. Absolutely no one is employed in our institution that is not a firm and absolute believer in yogurt. We have an efficient staff of nurses and their assistants who understand perfectly the application of the yogurt treatments. So this makes me wonder if the former medical physician pieced out because he had some questions about the validity of the yogurt treatments.
Right. So we need to talk about this guy. Enter Dr. Darst, the new sanapractic physician.
I love alliteration in a doctor name especially. Yeah. It's not creepy at all.
So recall that sanapractic medicine was just a term, I guess, invented here in the PNW for drugless medicine, and that really encompasses a whole range of specialties, some of them rather odd. So his name is Dr. William Delbert Darst.
It gets better. Dr. Delbert Darst.
Delbert Darst. He was born in 1865 in Ohio, and his father died when he was very young. And before he was a so-called doctor, I found him in census records working as a cook in a hotel in Illinois for many years. And he had his first wife, Rosa. They had 6 children between 1896 and 1910. And in the early 1900s, he moved the whole family to Montana. And while he's there, the only real news he makes is that he claimed to invent a variety of vineless potatoes, which people were pretty excited about at first, but eventually it was called fraudulent and widely reported as such in the news. And so in the 1910 census, he was unemployed, and in 1912, he and his wife were divorced. Meanwhile, he moves to Walla Walla, Washington.
Yeah.
He married again and divorced in quick succession. And somehow while there, he somehow got trained and was listed in directories as a chiropractor, and also as president of the Human Bake Oven Incorporated company.
I feel like there's definitely some tie-in joke to be made about potatoes and ovens and who thought that was a good idea to call it a human bake oven?
It reminds me of Easy Bake Oven.
It's totally Easy Bake Oven. It's like, Witch and Hansel and Gretel. There's just nothing. It does not sound appealing whatsoever. And then sound off again, hippies in the comments. What would be the excitement of a vineless potato? How could that be useful or helpful at all? Why would you want that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly the benefits of that were supposed to be.
No.
But I'm sure it had something to do with farming it and growing it, but apparently it didn't work, and it was not true.
Okay. All right. Somebody needs to help me understand. And then there's nobody who can help me understand why this man named it a human bake oven, but there you have it. So we'll get back to the human bake ovens in just a minute. So by 1919, Dr. Darst was in Bellingham, Dr. Delbert Darst, and listed as a chiropractor and drugless physician. And in a few years, he was hired at the Yogurt Sanitarium to replace the doctor who had pieced out. Remember the real physician? Now we've got Mr. Vineless Potato Human Bake Oven Man. And that was somehow like a boon to the business.
He firmly believes in the yogurt.
Right. Because
So
nobody here does not unequivocally believe in the yogurt. So there's another full-page advertisement from July of 1923 after they had remodeled the sanitarium with crazy pictures and descriptions of a bunch of the wacky equipment that was also used in the Yogurt Sanitarium, including the human bake oven. So some of the headlines, quote, Northwest's Modern Temple of Health, Dr. Darst now in charge, moves entire equipment. Announcement, extraordinary! Exclamation point. Dr. Darst needs no introduction to Bellingham as he has practiced here as a drugless physician and nutrition specialist for a number of years. He operated a health sanitarium in Walla Walla for 10 years prior to his arrival in Bellingham.
I feel like this is false also. I couldn't find any mentions of him in newspapers or city directories or anything that indicated that he was somehow involved with a sanitarium in Walla Walla, which there was one. So it's not impossible. He was listed as a chiropractor and as president of the Human Bake Oven Company, but that's the only thing I could find. I mean, it's possible he worked at a sanitarium, but also the time period of 10 years, and I have a lot of questions, like, what was his training? Where do you go? Maybe you go to the sanitarium and they're just like, okay, follow us around and watch what we do. I don't know. But the guy has gone from being a cook to a potato fraudster to a human bake oven company president and chiropractor / drugless physician.
Oh,
So, and what did you think about some of these pictures? Like his picture?
Yeah, I love.
And all these photos of all these weird machines.
He looks a little priestish, for sure. Very white.
Potatoey.
Potatoey. Definitely potatoey. Yeah, the pictures are creepy as fuck. Like, really Frankenstein kind of shit.
Yeah, seriously.
Right?
We got the Militaire.
Oh, yeah.
The Radio Vitant. The Polysine Wave.
Yeah.
These are all different weird machines.
So these are all, when they talked about in that advertisement, in case you missed it, Dr. Darst, these are all his little machines, right? And he now, as superintendent, moves those into, so they're just adding more to the lineup of bullshit. treatments you can get in the sanitarium. Only probably before.
I think
there
probably
were sweat baths and things.
Yeah.
And this, again, we're just going over the fucking top with things that have.
But this guy seems to be really into these wacky machines.
Yeah.
And this is a big point they're making here.
Right, so we're going back to the electricity that we talked about in the last episode.
Going from yogurt to electricity.
Yeah.
He's bringing the devices.
That's right. Dr. Delbert Darst brings the devices. That should have been the name for this. So there's a picture of someone hooked up to the device, the Militaire. It says, quote, "This wonderful electric machine called Militaire is the outcome of the World War, having been made by the best electric brains of America, France, and England for the benefit of the hundreds of thousands of poor, maimed heroes crippled out of all resemblance to their former selves. Is in constant use in government sanitariums today and is now obtainable by private practitioners, and Dr. Darst received one after 8 months of waiting. Makes quick work of such painful conditions as pleurisy, neuralgia, neuritis, rheumatism, and a myriad of lesser diseases. Is also used for fulguration and electrocoagulation of cancers and other malignant growths, reducing high blood pressure, etc., etc.,
I
etc.
like that they just put in etc., etc. Like they're like, okay,
that was in
you
the
got
quote.
it.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff.
Pretty much anything.
Yep. Whatever you need.
Yeah. Then we had the picture, there's a picture of a woman laying under a big lamp, which I guess is called the Radio Vitante. And it says, quote, "This powerful 2,000 candle power electric light." Oh, that's so quaint and sweet.
2,000 candles, man. That's a lot of candles. Think about that. That's bright.
No, that is bright and expensive. And that's cool. Okay, so this powerful 2,000 candle power electric light called the Radio Vitante light, which is an imitation of the sun's rays on mountain tops, where sunlight and pure oxygen cure countless ills in an incredible short time for reducing pain and swellings, kidney pressure, bladder troubles, lumbago, neuritis, sore throats, congestion, tonsillitis, etc. It is unequaled. The sunlight on a mountaintop.
I know.
Pure oxygen.
2,000 candles, man.
That's what 2,000 candles will get you. And then there's a picture of somebody hooked up to another machine called the polysine wave. Quote, "This electric machine is the peak of galvanic and sinusoidal effort, is especially valuable in prostate, vaginal, constipation, pelvic disease, female diseases, appendicitis, and countless other conditions. Also used in giving the powerful electric water bath in bathtubs. It has been adopted by nearly every Army Medical Corps on Earth."
Just be careful there, medical corps. You don't want to be electrocuting soldiers in these bathtubs.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're, there's a lot of, like, up the butt, in the vagina, pelvic, electricity.
Wait, look at the picture.
Yeah.
There's just someone under a blanket, and there's, like, weird cords. Oh, yeah, we looked this one up, remember? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it had, like, the attachments.
Yes, because then you put the paddle in the water, and it electrifies the water. Yeah. Constipation, pelvic diseases.
This is a big vibrator.
This is just a big-ass vibrator. And they're also, just by the way, fancy. All of these things are, like, beautiful dark wood, like, little boxes.
It looks like a legit piece of furniture.
Yeah. Okay, then we have the picture. Again, we have a cabinet in this one, and this... ladies and gentlemen, the human bake oven. So they say, quote, "The above, known as the electric hum or bake oven, is the conqueror of rheumatism and kindred ailments. Countless cases of rheumatism have had to be lifted into this cabinet, and a half hour later marveled at the fact that they could walk away without help." So yeah, here we go. Here's the human bake oven, the easy bake oven, also known as the electric hum. And then also just known as the electric light bath, which we talked about last episode.
Yeah, as far as we can tell.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of... I think he just copyrighted or whatever.
I couldn't find a patent on anything called a human bake oven. Much less, it wasn't in Darst's name. I couldn't find a patent for anything by him. So he's just getting these from somewhere else and then, I guess, reselling them and or using them. But yeah. So we're going to get to a guy in a minute who really made a lot of these things.
And again, the electric light bath is just a bunch of light bulbs in a cabinet.
Yeah.
And
People were excited about electricity, and they were like, this must have really magical healing properties. We're going to try it out in lots of different ways. So anyway, the sanitarium carries on with all of Dr. Darst's devices and machines and administering yogurt and baking people in ovens. There's some fun side stories. I love that the sanitarium had a bowling team.
Oh, that is precious.
I'm picturing like in the 1920s, some cute little bowling alley. Another fun thing I found out from an article was that Dr. Darst's son, Delbert Jr., I believe, fell in love with a patient who was a patient at the sanitarium, and they got married in the old sanitarium. How
that is romance.
Is
that is.
I know. But then, fast forward, 1925, Dr. Darst takes his human bake ovens and freaking bails. So an ad appears in the paper stating, I have removed my entire electric equipment and human bake ovens from Yogurt Sanitarium and no longer am connected with them. Now at the Fine Arts Temple, across from the wide MCA building, Dr. Delbert Darst, former superintendent, Yogurt Sanitarium. So that's the Fine Arts building on East Holly, just down from the Co-op, which today has Wise Awakening. Lots of crystals and stuff in there.
Yeah, all right. Carrying on the tradition.
Woo stuff. And then Wally's Barbershop on the main floor. So.
Nice.
But he was upstairs, and I think he had like 32 rooms, and that included, quote, blood washing baths.
Oi.
Bake ovens, electrotherapy, hydrotherapy, and light therapy. But I just love blood
washing baths is the creepiest thing ever. I love that he just peaced out. Again.
I know what happened. Some drama went down, I'm sure.
And this is 1925, so when did he move in? It was 22?
Yeah, only a couple years.
Only a few years. You know, it leads you to believe that Dr. Delbert Darst wasn't the biggest man of his word, maybe?
Yeah.
So Henry M. White sold the old Fairhaven Hotel / Yogurt Sanitarium, and he moved back to Seattle. He continued to manufacture and sell yogurt products.
It just seems like that sanitarium didn't quite...
Yeah, there was just, the partnership wasn't great, and...
There's
100 rooms
is
a lot.
That's a big old building to take care of.
Yeah. And also probably the yogurt craze was dwindling just a little bit.
Yeah.
But that ended the great Yogurt Sanitarium, and the building was vacant for a while, and then later got the most hideous concrete makeover and became the Fairhaven Community Center / Boys and Girls Club. And then it suffered a fire and was demolished in the 1950s. There was a gas station that occupied the site for years and then was abandoned, and a hot dog cart was out there, some little train cars for decades, right? Until just recently when it became the new site of the Fairhaven Towers building. And this is going to come as a shock to you all, but condos. More condos.
Retail below.
Yeah.
So Dr. Darst, though, he continued on with his bake ovens in the Fine Arts building for a while. And he was in the news a couple of times, including there was a controversial case where a girl died from diphtheria while in his care. He was refusing to get vaccinated because he'd been exposed to diphtheria, and there was this whole weird thing. But drugless medicine.
Drugless. We don't need vaccines.
Anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was another weird incident where he apparently faked being robbed.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what was going on with that. He was just a weird guy, and he was really into those health gadgets and machines. So I found this other ad from 1938 proclaiming, at Dr. Darst's office, you will be given a thorough examination by the famous radio-classed diagnostic instrument. You will be asked no questions. Instead, you will be told what your trouble is.
Okay.
So
38, though, by the way. This guy is also...
He's still going in 38.
Cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Literally. People in human bake ovens.
So
Cool.
we had
Creepy.
to find out some more about some of these weird machines, and it led us to the next guy here.
Yep. So this machine was one of the many invented by this guy, Albert Abrams, who was also a real piece of work. He was known for his electronic reaction of Abrams theory, or the ERA, based on the principle that electrons were the basis of life, and for creating and promoting these whack electrical machines that could supposedly diagnose and later also cure any disease. Spoiler, they couldn't. And these machines now fetch a pretty penny on antique and collector websites.
Yeah, specifically as quack medicine.
And there's a lot of them out there.
There's a lot. And then they're really interesting. You go on these antique collector websites and they talk about, like, you open it up and it's just some bells and whistles and gears, and it really, like, just didn't do anything.
It looks like, yeah, like a steampunk prop.
Yeah.
You know, that you would make for, like, Comic-Con. Sorry.
I just think it's really weird that at the time this is natural alternative medicine, but they were super obsessed with weird electrical devices.
Yeah, having no idea what this could do to a body long term.
It just seems funny to me.
Term.
Like, I don't think of electricity being natural or holistic or whatever, you know? So it seems very weird. Also, it's just that cutting edge technology, I think nobody really understood exactly. So it gave this hope for a miraculous cure, but also it was really easy to just bilk people out of money because nobody knew what was going on with any of these machines. They just looked really impressive.
Yeah. And they did.
And it seems so obviously, you know, fraudulent now, but I have to wonder about the people who purposefully were, like, peddling the stuff. Like Dr. Darst. Did he on some level have some faith that these machines would actually be helpful? Or was it just completely, like, a money-making scheme?
Right.
It's just such a Wild West frontier time of medicine. It's just super fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And it just also that people could just more or less say they were a medical practitioner with really very little training, and there really wasn't any regulation.
And that was countrywide, but especially like we talked about earlier, that article, it was particular to the Pacific Northwest because we are the fourth corner. We are the Wild West and the last to be really, like, regulated in many, many ways.
There was a lady who had lived in Bellingham and worked as a nurse with her daughters. And then she went to Seattle and opened a sanitarium there. And then was basically like she was taking money and not paying bills. And there was some scandal around it or whatever.
Right.
So there was a lot. There were
people who got caught, but not.
Yeah. And I think that this next little story we're just going to mention is a real example of that, because part of the reason it was so difficult to prosecute this woman for literally murdering and starving people to death.
So some people did take these fraudulent practitioners to court, and that's how one of the most sensational cases in the Pacific Northwest came about, and that was the story of Dr. Linda Burfield Hazard. There's a book all about her, really beautifully written, called Starvation Heights by Greg Olson, and it is subtitled, as you know, we love a good subtitle on this podcast, and it is called A True Story of Murder and Malice in the Woods of the Pacific Northwest. Now, that is not a hook for our listeners. That I can't imagine what is. So, it was about Dr. Linda Burfield Hazard, who opened a sanitarium in Olalla in Kitsap County. She was, by our accounts and most accounts, a total nut job, who believed that fasting... Oh gosh, this is all sounding so familiar. Fasting would cure anything. Or did she believe that? She certainly starved a bunch of people to death and conveniently inherited their money, jewelry, estates, etc. And the book details this lawsuit brought against her in the early 1900s by a wealthy British woman who'd gone to the sanitarium for treatment with her sister who died. She managed to successfully escape with the aid of her childhood nanny, who comes and rescues her. Linda Hazard was convicted of manslaughter, but it was a difficult trial because of all of the laxity of the laws surrounding practicing medicine that we spoke of. So that's a fascinating part of the story. She got paroled and then pardoned and then moved to New Zealand and kept practicing. And she later came back to the Pacific Northwest, opened a new sanitarium disguised as a, quote, school of health, and she freaking died taking her own treatments in 1938. I am reading the book right now. And it is truly insane. This lady was like a grifter, real. And that job, I think, sums it up, right?
Yeah. She's a tripper. And that one, I mean, you're taking another one of these weird health fads. And that was an actual fad, that there were other doctors and things who believed that starvation was like...
Hi, fasting, intermittent fasting. We do that today. Yes. There's a little more science behind it, but still...
Right.
Low.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And again...
Not healthy.
Like, maybe on just a little something, but taking it to this extreme. And also... just bilking people out of money.
And using it to inherit their money.
Like, okay.
And then goes to New Zealand. I love that she just pieced out. New Zealand and then comes back.
And her license by then had been revoked. So that's why she had to be like, it's just a school of health.
School of health, yeah. But clearly people did continue to trust her. She had this crazy reputation. It is an insane story. I love the bit about her childhood nanny coming to rescue her. I mean,
I know.
you can't get more dramatic than this crazy story. And the Pacific Northwest, yes. I think this is the place where you get the craziest of stories,
and
right?
It's interesting. I actually found an article in the Herald that was talking about the sanitarium trend, and it was specifically talking about like a type of person, usually a woman, who is wealthy and is like obsessed with being healthy, that go to these sanitariums. So there was like kind of this whole weird stereotype about it, and they were like, watch out if anyone you know has gotten into the sanitarium racket or whatever, which was legit a thing.
That is so crazy.
I know.
And it's like this proto version of our crazy ass health trends and goop, yeah, all the weird shit you're gonna try. Put an egg in your vagina, you know.
Yes.
Diet pills and water pills. Yeah. I mean, this is it feels like the beginning of that. And that is interesting that you read that about women specifically being targeted.
Mm-hmm. And also, if you like diets and health trends that are completely being torn apart, Maintenance Phase is a great podcast that does just that.
All right, Colby. I mean, that's going to wrap up our discussion of the sanitarium. Obviously, there's so much more to go into, but as we said, Maintenance Phase is a great podcast. Sawbones is a great podcast. You Are Wrong About, great podcast to listen to. Things that kind of debunk or go into the actual history of these things. I want to talk about the moral of the story. What's the moral of this story, this episode? What did you gain? What are you going to carry away? Don't trust men peddling human bake ovens.
Vineless potatoes.
And vineless potatoes. Don't give them your money, people.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that is the moral of the story. I think that's the takeaway.
Follow the money.
Follow the money. Who is this going to?
Yes. We've all gone there, and a lot of us have. I know that I, at some points in my life, have spent way too much money on, like, supplements and going to naturopaths and trying to figure out something that's going to make me feel better. Really just spent a lot of money and didn't get a lot of results. So I think that some of this feels very familiar. I think that when it comes to people's health, you're willing to try. You get desperate.
There is a desperation. On Scam Goddess, another great podcast you should listen to. She talks about the despo meter. Like, if you're really desperate, you're gonna fall for shit and you're gonna make dumb decisions. And there is a lot of like great things happening out there and wellness things, but I don't think pushing yourself and paying tons of money is how you're gonna get there.
Well, and I feel like our whole medical system, can we just scratch it all and just start over? Because I think part of it is the problems with our medical system are so bad that then in reaction to that, you get this desire to find an alternative to that. But then that alternative also is weirdly bad in a lot of ways, and it all costs money.
Well, I think that is the biggest thing, is we live in a capitalist society, and so you can't,
There's no escape.
You can be a little skeptical of everything, and you should be. That said, we love you. We love your natural choices. We love you hippies and your breast milk yogurt. I am here for all of it, as long as it makes you feel good. Just don't go like stealing people's jewelry and like kidnapping them or starving them, that kind of thing. Don't starve yourself. That's never going to work. That's not a thing. Oh, Jesus. That was a big moral of the story.
I kind of want a smoothie now.
I kind of want, I want a good juice. Yeah. Yeah, get some probiotics in there.
Yeah. I got a craving.
All right, you guys. I think with that, we're going to wrap it up, and we will see you all in our next episode. Thanks for joining us.
Well, hey there, mama. Where'd you go? You gotta reap just what you sow. That's too bad. Too bad. To that old time. The old man hits without bad weather. Put on the side, they were sewn together. That's too bad. To listen to that old time music.
We'd like to thank Devin Champlin and the late, great Lucas Hicks for the use of the Gallus Brothers song, Too Bad West Coast Blues. You can find the Gallus Brothers tune on Bandcamp, and you can find Devin Champlin at Champlin Guitars in Bellingham.
Oh, Lou loves you red, Lou loves you blue. Most of the time, Lucas loves you blue. That's too bad. To listen to that old time music. I lost my hat, I lost my brim, I look like crows just swinging on a limb. That's too bad. To listen to that old time music.
check out our tours and events, read our blog with podcast notes, etc. at bellinghistory.com. And don't forget to subscribe and review our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And tune in next time for more Belling history.
Lost my hat,